Hey,
That's
welcome
nice.
everybody.
No, don't say welcome yet. That means we have to.
Trying to make sure everything is smooth and going smooth, I guess. We got the Bigfoot crossing sign behind us, and we're ready to record tonight.
Matt, we took the worst thumbnail. My hair looks like that one hill from the one that's just like
The one that
a
keeps
corkscrew.
curling out.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
my hair right now. Thanks, buddy.
Hey, some people will be super happy to have Tim Burton hair.
I hope the silence comes through well on the podcast.
Yeah, right. I hate
Thanks.
Tim Burton.
I look like a waiter.
I look like a librarian.
All right, librarian and waiter.
Mm-hmm. The good thing is we have no viewers right now, so
Zero.
no one's listening to this. All right, so you got your creepypastas ready to go?
I guess. Yeah. Hold on. Let me just quickly send all my friends the link so that I don't have friends after I send them the links.
It's perfect.
Okay. Let's put one up on Facebook. Put a couple up on Facebook. Just post the same link like 2 or 3 times so Facebook has to deactivate one. That'll show them.
That'll show these idiots.
And idiots they were.
Hey, we got 2 viewers.
What?
Hello, folks. How are you? We're just getting set up right now. We're gonna start recording in a little bit. Bear with us. How are you doing tonight? I hope you're doing good. I'm doing good. Jake, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, I guess. I'm
Good.
here.
Alive
Yeah.
and kicking.
That was my first mistake.
First mistake, waking up this morning. Second mistake, continuing to be alive the rest of the day. It was a rough day at work. Let me just say that.
It was good. I enjoyed it.
I was contented of the fact subject to the inability of our designers to get files to me in a timely manner.
That's good. That's what I like to hear.
Oh yeah, it was.
Because you're the one, if I remember correctly, we're the freaking linebackers between design and sales.
It's fun. It's always good to remember. Footless Monk, thank you for joining us.
Hey Jeff, how we doing? I still sound like I'm at work. How we doing?
How we doing?
Okay, well,
Remember, they can hear your smile on the phone.
oddly creepy. All right,
I
well,
know.
let's get in here. Let's waste an hour.
All right. Well, welcome everybody to Let's Make It Weird. My name is Matt.
Jake.
Excellent. And we are sans Nick tonight. He's got the butt flu. He cannot be with us.
Bad start.
And no, he doesn't have butt flu. He's just got regular flu.
Saying butt flu doesn't make it any better. You said it twice now.
Yeah, it's like a bad cold, but coming out of his butt.
3 times.
How many more times can I say butt tonight?
The-
Let's just see how much I have written for Creepypasta. Can you hear this? Can you hear this in the sound capture? Yeah, that's all that horrible Creepypasta.
I'm sure that sounded great over anyone's headset if they're listening with speakers. Just listen to that peak.
I'll try and even it out. I'll level it out for everybody. But anyway, tonight, first of all, we hope you guys are all enjoying yourselves. And if you're watching us live, I hope
You made a mistake. What are you doing with your Friday nights?
Why aren't you out doing something better? You could even ask us, why aren't we doing something better?
Bad enough we have to be here, but jeez.
I think I will kick it off tonight.
Well, are we gonna start by explaining like what a creepypasta is
I mean,
for people who don't know?
you know what? Yes, let's talk about this. So, Creepypasta obviously started on 4chan, like most of this horrible stuff does. It started with people just writing their own homemade horror stories and copying and pasting it from one forum to another. And it went from being just creepy pasting to creepypasta. And it runs the gamut from simple horror story to something that's truly chilling. And there are some really good creepypastas that are out there that one day we should probably do like a long format episode where each one of us reads a longer creepypasta.
Like one
But
that like they put time and effort into.
yes,
Or...
there are some really good ones. Russian Sleep Experiment's a good one. I don't know if you've ever read
I don't know
that.
if we can do that one. I'm not a huge.
I love that one.
No, let's do that one because I want to point out like the plot holes.
Perfect.
Okay.
We'll do that one on the next time we do creepypasta.
Okay.
But for tonight, we've got some selected out for you. Something that we pulled, that I pulled when I should have been working. I mean, when did you do your?
In the car on the way to your house tonight.
Perfect.
I was like, oh shit, I gotta find something. But no, before we get into it, is that really where the nomenclature creepypasta came from? Just like a one-off of creepy pasting?
Absolutely. It was. I mean, it was a copy paste, and then it was copy pasta, and then it was creepypasta.
Huh.
Yeah.
I feel like you told me that, even if you already did. This is the first time ever hearing of it.
I think we've talked about it in a previous. I think our first creepypasta episode.
I would imagine so.
Yeah. But I'm going to start us off with a classic. Tell me if you've heard this one before. You probably have, and it's not going to stop me from reading it. Anyway, The Rake. During the summer of 2003, events in the northeastern United States involving a strange, human-like creature sparked brief local media interest before an apparent blackout was enacted. Little or no information was left intact, as most online and written accounts of the creature were mysteriously destroyed. Primarily focused in rural New York State, self-proclaimed witnesses told stories of their encounters with a creature of unknown origin. Emotions ranged from extremely traumatic levels of fright and discomfort to almost childlike sense of playfulness and curiosity. While their published versions are no longer on record, the memories remain powerful. Several of the involved parties began looking for answers that year. In early 2006, the collaboration had accumulated nearly 24 documents dating between the 12th century and present day, spanning 4 continents. In almost all cases, the stories were identical. I've been contacted with a member of been in contact with a member of this group and was able to get some excerpts from their upcoming book, The Rake, A Suicide Note, 1964. As I prepare to take my life, I feel it necessary to assuage any guilt or pain I have introduced through this act. It is not the fault of anyone other than him. For once I awoke and felt his presence, and once I awoke and saw his form, awoke and heard his voice, and looked into his eyes, sleep without fear of what I might next awake to experience. I cannot ever wake. Goodbye. Found in the same wooden box were 2 empty envelopes addressed to William and Rose, and one loose personal letter with no envelope. Dear Linny, I have prayed for you. He spoke your name. A journal entry, translated from Spanish, 1880. I have experienced the greatest terror. I have experienced the greatest terror. I have experienced the greatest terror. I see his eyes when I close mine. They are hollow, black. I will not sleep. His followed by unintelligible text.
And I do Rake.
Wet hand.
Why is wet hands gross?
A Mariner's Log, 1691. Can you imagine like a guy at a deli and you like see him making your sandwich with his like slightly damp hand? Yeah. He came to me in my sleep. From the foot of my bed I felt a sensation. He took everything. We must return to England. We shall not return here again at the request of the Rake. From a witness, 2006. 3 years ago, I had just returned from a trip from Niagara Falls with my family for the 4th of July. We were all very exhausted after a long day of driving, so my husband and I put the kids right to bed and called it a night. About 4 a.m., I woke up thinking my husband had gotten up to use the restroom. I used the moment to steal back the sheets, only to wake him in the process. I apologized and told him I thought he got out of the bed. When he turned to face me, he gasped and pulled his feet up from the end of the bed. So quickly, his knees almost knocked me out of the bed. He then grabbed me and said nothing. After adjusting to the dark for half a second, I was able to see what caused the strange reaction. At the foot of the bed, sitting and facing away from us, was what appeared to be a naked man, or a large hairless dog of some sort.
Either one. Barely similar.
Naked man, hairless dog, who knows? For some reason, I was not instantly frightened by it, but more concerned as to its condition. At this point, I was somewhat under the assumption that we were supposed to help him. My husband was peering over his arm and knee, tucked into the fetal position, occasionally glancing at me before returning to the creature. In a flurry of motion, the creature scrambled around the cell, crawled flailing sort of motion right along the bed, less than a foot away. Creaturely silent, about 30 seconds just seemed like a while, just looking at my husband. The creature then placed his hand on his knee and ran into the hallway, leading to the kids' room. I screamed and ran for the light switch, planning to stop him before he hurt my children. When I got to the hallway, the light from the bedroom was enough to see it crouching and hunched over, about 20 feet away. He turned around and looked directly at me, covered in blood. I flipped the switch on the wall and saw my daughter, Clara. The creature ran down the stairs, while my husband and I rushed to help our daughter. She was very badly injured, and spoke only once more in her short life. She said, "He is the Rake." My husband drove his car into the lake that night. That was quick.
Whoa, he did not skip a beat.
While rushing our daughter to the hospital, he did not survive. Didn't finish that sentence. Sorry.
You didn't see the goddamn period, and maybe there's more to it.
There was a comma, but here's the thing: it's hard to see this printout. It's got these lines in it where it dragged from other lines, so that comma is kind of like cut off, so it's hard to see.
I just went through a quick roller coaster. Just my husband drove into the lake. I thought, wow, he killed himself fast. And then he said, driving my daughter to the hospital. I was like, oh, he's all right. He died.
He did not survive.
Down, back up, down.
Being a small town, news got around pretty quickly. The police were helpful at first, and the local newspaper took a lot of interest as well. However, the story was never published, and the local television news never followed up either. For several months, my son Justin and I stayed in a hotel near my parents' house. After we decided to return home, I began looking for answers myself. I eventually located a man in the next town over who had a similar story. We got in contact and began talking about our experiences. He knew of 2 other people in New York who had seen the creature and now referred to it as the Rake. It took the 4 of us about 2 solid years of hunting on the internet and writing letters to come up with a small collection of what we believed to be accounts of the Rake. None of them gave any details, history, or follow-up. One journal had an entry involving a creature in its first 3 pages and never mentioned it again. A ship's log explained nothing of the encounter, saying only that they were told to leave by the Rake. That was the last entry in the log. There were, however, many instances where the creature's visit was one of a serious same person. Multiple people have mentioned being spoken to, my daughter included. They led us to wonder if the Rake had visited us before our last encounter. I set up a digital recorder near my bed and left it running all night, every night, for 2 weeks. I would tediously scan through the sounds of me rolling around in bed each day when I woke up. By the end of the second week, I was quite used to the occasional sound of sleep while blurring at 8 times normal speed. This for every day. Day of the 3rd week, I thought I heard something different. What I found was a shrill voice. It was the Rake. I can't listen to it long enough or even begin to transcribe it. I haven't let anyone listen to it yet. All I know is that I've heard it before and now believe that it spoke when it was sitting at the foot of the front in front of my husband. I don't remember hearing anything at the time, but for some reason the voice on the recorder immediately brings me back to the moment. The thoughts that must have gone through my daughter's head make me very upset. I have not seen the Rake since he ruined my life, but I know that he has been in my room while I slept. I know and fear that one night I'll wake up and see him staring at me. And that's the Rake, everybody. This is actually kind of considered to be along the same lines as like Slenderman.
Is that just what he's called now? It used to be the Slender Man, and now it's a Slenderman.
Yeah, it's just Slenderman.
Slenderman!
Friendly neighborhood Slenderman.
Yep.
There's actually there's a couple really interesting video games. Interesting. They're indie made games.
There's a game called Rake.
Yeah.
that I showed you,
Yeah.
and I played seconds of because the game is broken. But
That's
I
the
almost
reason why it's difficult to play.
yeah.
But no, I mean it's really interesting, and it's got actually quite a bit of lore, kind of like along the same lines as Slenderman. It's um, uh, there's a lot to it, and people really like writing about this guy, drawing about this guy. And if you go to Google Images and type in the Rake, you'll get a really cool image of
Gardening supplies.
there's gardening supplies, but there's also the like it looks like a trail cam with a humanoid creature, eyes glowing, with these huge clawed hands, like reaching out for the camera. And it's enough to make you stay up at night and not want to go to bed or look down the hallway in the middle of the night. So, yeah, it's a lot of fun. Jake, do you want to read your story next?
Yeah. I don't know. Before we get into it, um, I was trying to like hold back laughter. Um, wouldn't it be great, author, in order to give a little more verisimilitude to the log translated from Spanish and the Mariner's log, if you try to do like something a little more like culturally appropriate? So culturally appropriate in air
Yeah.
quotes, and so the one translated from Spanish is like, "Ay, Dios mío, el rake," and all that, and then the Mariners is like, "Oh, ahoy there, where ye be seeing the rake of vast," and this is illegible.
I can't use this in my stories.
But cool stuff. As soon as you said the rake, I was like, that sounds familiar. Then I realized the game. I like So what I found from the game was he was more of like a boogeyman or a Bigfoot
Yeah.
thing, like the Rake, like a monster that kind of haunts like northern New York.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I definitely feel that that's kind of his stomping grounds. Bigfoot's got the Pacific Northwest.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
he's more of like a rural New York thing.
Yeah.
So I have 5 stories to pick from,
Woo!
and I'm slowly but surely going to turn this into the Chris Straub Brood Hollow Hour.
Perfect. I love it.
But
Maybe I'll get him back on the internet.
Oh, I thought you meant get him back in the podcast. I was like, you would never get on this. Okay, so we have a few to choose from. I want to start out with at least the Stillwood King.
Okay.
To me, that's like what Slenderman should be.
Okay.
And we'll kind of go into why it is afterwards. I have no idea how long the story is, so feel free to
I
just
don't-
go to bed if you get.
I don't remember it being that long.
It's pretty short and to the sweet. Short and sweet to the point.
There you go.
I feel like all of the stories are that way. You know, there's a lot to them, but it requires multiple readings, not multiple sit downs of the same reading. And I like that. But here we go. Actually, before we start, let me just blow my nose because
Oh man, we lost a viewer.
he was like exploding his nose.
I'm out.
I'd be a little surprised by that.
It's a good one, Footless Monk. You're gonna
Yeah.
love it.
Allergy season.
Yeah.
We blend this well.
It's my perfect story.
Yeah. Okay, so here we go with Chris Straub's story from Iker Falls, A Visitor's Guide, The Stillwood King.
All right.
In 1806, settler Elijah Brown became lost for 2 days in what would later be called the Stillwood Forest, a deceptively small wooded area south of Iker Falls proper. Just for a little bit of background, Iker Falls is a town that Chris Straub writes about in the Midwest. All the stories kind of take place in the Midwest, kind of like folksy, old-timey, small-town Americana.
Yeah.
So there's Iker Falls, which is named after a local waterfall where the water comes through like inky. So it's like, they call it Iker, or Iker, how you pronounce the word Iker Falls. And it is adjacent, blocked by a wooded area called the Stillwood Forest, by another town, Brood Hollow, which he's written about extensively in his online comic, Brood Hollow. And
It's
every
not
chance...
called Dankwood.
It's delightful, Dankwood. You tried so hard that one day, just, hey, what's the story you're reading? Dankwood? Brood Hollow.
The look on your face when you turned around to look at me, and you're like, "What the fuck, man?"
You couldn't remember 2 simple little words? You had to just go with the first thing that came to mind?
I was not firing on all cylinders. I'll just tell you that.
Okay, so anyways, all of the stories are kind of written about this small town of Iker Falls. They mostly take place in the 30s when the town was first started, planned, settled.
Settled.
But some of them do take place in modern day because the town was settled. Became a boomtown, was abandoned, and then recently came back as sort of like a hipstery, new agey kind of town.
All right.
So there's stories with more of a modern touch, and then older stories like this one, which have very much of an early 1930s sort of feel.
Okay.
And by 1930s, I mean this takes place in 1806. Don't let her forgot. Anyways, I'm just gonna start over. The Stillwood King by Chris Straub. In 1806, settler Elijah Brown became lost for 2 days in what would later be named the Stillwood Forest, a deceptively small wooden area southwest of Acre Falls proper. When he returned to the town, Brown was gaunt, dehydrated, and starving to the point of near death, and insisted that he was lost not for 2 days but 9. He had also carefully kept journal entries with the rise and set of the sun, and indeed he had made 9 of them. Exhaustion and confusion clearly played a factor in augmenting Brown's story, and of course, after a hard winter, there's no record of how dehydrated and starved Brown may have been before getting lost. Later expeditions into the Stillwood show that the forest floor is incredibly thick with vegetation, with tall, rail-thin trees making most passage exceedingly difficult. Add to this 3 similarly curving creeks and streams flowing off of the Arathea, the natural sound dampening of the trees, and foliage sometimes so thick that it blocks the sky, and you have a recipe for losing one's way quite easily. However, the Stillwood still carries the stigma of being invisibly endless. The legend of the Stillwood King started, interestingly enough, almost immediately after Brown's return. Contrary to popular belief, it was not Brown's story that evolved him into the spooky figure of legend as time passed, but his experience probably did inspire it. Historians believe either teachers at a schoolhouse bordering the Stillwood, or parents of the attending children cooked up the legend to keep kids from wandering into their dangerous woods and getting lost. The legend says that Brown was not the first person to get lost in the Stillwood, but another man entered its wooded labyrinth hundreds of years before. Time doesn't work in the Stillwood the same way it does outside of it, and the longer you're trapped, the longer it seems, even if you're only gone a few days in the real world. That first victim became a permanent part of the Stillwood. He never found his way back home and should have starved to death, but the Stillwood wouldn't let its king die, so it slowed his heart to a crawl along with the rest of them. They say it beats once per day, and that he can't move more than a foot in an hour. When he's alone, that is. His clothes are ragged and torn, and he looks more like a bone-white cadaver than a man. He screams and cries for help, but no one outside can hear him, and over the centuries, his screams have become silent. And as he stalks among the dead leaves in exhaustion, praying for death to come, the Stillwood becomes a little more a part of him. His blood is creek water and moss, and skin is the color of mushroom caps. They say if you ever find yourself in the Stillwood, you have to be careful where you look. You see, the fact that no one sees him is what disconnected the Stillwood King from the normal passage of time in the first place. He is as slow and silent as the Stillwood itself. That is, until your eyes fall upon him. You may catch a sliver of white through a stand of trees, thinking to be a crop of mushrooms growing up the side of an old oak. But if it's the king, you'll see that white shape spin around instantly, in black eyes and a saw-edged mouth locked in his scream. Now you will hear him. And now he will be quick and loud, and all the things he can't be when no one is there. He has been waiting for this for a long time, and when you are looking at him, he'll move with all the pent-up time the Stillwood has stolen from him, has saved for him, and he will be upon you almost faster than you can blink. Almost, the legend says. So, if you see what looks like a crop of mushrooms, as tall as a man in the distance, don't stop to think, don't run, do nothing except shut your eyes. The Stillwood King already knows you're there, and the forest is no obstacle to him when he's fast. He may now only be inches from you, but if you shut your eyes in time, that's where he'll stay. Turn completely around, with your eyes still shut tight, and pray that he wasn't fast enough to run behind you in that blink. Now, feel your way through the forest, around the thin, close, brittle trees, and over the dead leaves, which will seem oddly quiet. In case he has positioned himself for you to come to him, change direction just once. Don't open your eyes until you've gone at least the same distance as the king was from you when you first saw him. With luck, you'll leave him trapped again, his heart beating once a day, his movement only a foot an hour. With your eyes shut, you slowly press against a wet, shambling thing that smells like moss and creek water and feels like mushroom caps. Open your eyes, so it will be quick.
Oh, that's a creepy one.
Dope, right? That's great. I love that. Now, to build that story up and explain why that's great and why Slenderman is poopy garbage.
Well, no, okay. This one's good because this is an actual... We were talking about... when we're not on this or on a podcast, Jake and I talk via text a lot about weird stuff. So we had to talk about why Slenderman seems to be a kind of a bad horror monster. And I don't know if any of you have seen the new trailer for Sony's last attempt to make money, which is the Slenderman movie. I think it's going to be a bad movie. I'm going to see it because I'd like to see how they try and ruin this.
Yeah.
But it doesn't seem like anything that they're putting into the trailer is part of the mythos for Slenderman. So I don't know what they're going to do. But the difference is the Stillwood King is an actual physical entity within this forest. And it is a part of this forest. The difference between Slenderman and him is he can physically interact with you, while Slenderman really cannot. I was telling Jake that I feel like Slenderman is more of a psychic virus, that once you see him within in some sort of media picture, or usually now it seems to be video cameras, once you've noticed him, he notices you, and then he can interact with you and affect your environment and cause you to go crazy or do things or any number of things, make you super sick. So he's less of an actual like monster and more of just an annoying tormentor. I don't know if you've ever played the Slenderman Arrival video game. We should do a playthrough one day for the podcast.
We should, and that's actually interesting that you bring it up, because I think very scary game, but that game is to me the beginning of the end of Slenderman, because once you're now the person interacting with them, and you can kind of put your own personality into a game. It's no longer just this scared person doing their own thing. It's you. Then he kind of falls apart because he doesn't move when you're looking at him.
Yeah.
It's not really explained what he can do to you. Why he's here, what he's doing, really anything. He's just he's an NPC with no AI in the game. He just stands there and he stares at you.
There was and I need to try and track this website down again, and I'll link it on the YouTube page and Facebook and all that stuff. But there was I don't know if it was a game. It played itself like it was part of a game, but it was like a story that you used to play this game. It didn't make any sense, but it was this ongoing like diary of people who were interacting with Slenderman and trying to fight him and his minions. And
the minions?
Well,
his minions?
Yeah, because he would when he infected people with his presence, he could turn them into, they called them, or they
getting ready to roll my eyes.
Not familiars, proxy. They were a proxy for Slenderman because he cannot physically interact with us. So he needs somebody to interact with the world, a proxy.
And this is where Slenderman loses me, because it was a really cool idea when it first started.
Yeah.
But it's because it was a Photoshop with like 20 words.
Yeah.
And now they've given Slenderman this blank check. They've expanded on the mythos to the point where he's a 16th century Germanic.
That was so bad. I know.
That doesn't. So what I like about the Stillwood King and what I don't like about Slenderman is he has a start. You I understand with a lot of horror less is more. Yeah. But there's so little of Slenderman that what do you want him to do?
It's such a blank page. Anyone can write anything about it.
Yeah.
And well, what I was trying to get at with this story was that these people were, the way that Slenderman can interact with you was through the electromagnetic field. And that's why you can only see him through digital media, because he's on that electromagnetic wavelength.
Except that's not even a thing anymore, because in Marble Hornets, half the scenes are through a video camera, obviously, so of course we can see Slenderman, but it's people interacting with Slenderman.
It's true. You can actually see him.
Who physically see him. But
True.
But there's no, like, established start. It's just, he was around in the 16th century wearing a black suit. That makes no sense.
Yeah.
Occasionally he's got tentacles, maybe he'll infect you, maybe he's a virus. But with the Stillwood King, you got your supernatural element. You got the Stillwood, the forest.
Oh, yeah.
You have the fact that it kind of brings into almost like Lovecraftian elements. Like time has no meaning here.
Mm-hmm.
And, they introduce the villain, the Stillwood King. But then, they explain what he can do, what he can't do. You can escape, but it's not likely. And with Slenderman, it's like, it's a 6-year-old's version of that. It's King, I have this unbeatable shield and you can't beat me when you're on the playground playing.
I remember that shield.
It's like, I shot, I blocked it. That's Slenderman.
Yeah.
Slenderman is, I blocked it with my magical shield, because...
I like that description. That's a good one.
All of a sudden I can do anything, and what I am is not properly explained.
I like that.
Yeah.
Well, I will also say, too, that the Stillwood King reminded me of an SCP monster. It was the first one that they ever made, SCP-713. And it's this concrete statue that, when you look at it, it stands completely static still, cannot move.
Mm-hmm.
But the moment you cannot observe it, it will move as fast as far as it can in that instant. So when you blink, it'll jump towards you. And
that's a pretty common trope, honestly, at this point.
It's true.
I mean, there's SCP-713 or whatever. There's the Weeping Angels from Doctor Who.
Yep.
There's the Stillwood King.
Yeah.
Sure, I mean, even in video games, you look on Steam, you can find little indie horror games. There was one where, you look at a monster, you gotta keep looking at him, because if you look away, he's gonna be right in front of you.
Oh, yeah. So well, and what I think of that everyone has of not being able to see your aggressor, your attacker, and the idea that even if you blink, that's it, you're done. So I like that idea is like that being a fear that they're playing on.
It goes a little bit deeper than that. I mean, yeah, obviously there's like the fear of not being able to see your aggressor, but I mean that's kind of what Slenderman is. But with like the Weeping Angel and with the Stillwood King, it takes another step forward that I like. That it's not that you're thrust into this environment where you can't see your aggressor. It's that you have to willingly go into it. You have to surrender your most valuable asset, sight.
Yeah.
And feel your way out of a forest. It's like they say people who go into those sensory deprivation tanks can hallucinate.
Oh my god.
It's like that.
I know.
You're in another world solely by removing like your senses. The Stillwood takes your hearing, and you take your sight. So.
God, I would love to go into those sensory deprivation tanks. I heard about this chamber.
What I just said.
I know. There is this chamber that you can go into, I think in Minnesota, so it's not that far away. We can totally do this, where it's designed that it absorbs all noise, so that you will start hearing your own heartbeat going through your eardrums.
Well, you can hear like your blood pumping. Yeah, I've heard of that.
Oh my god, I would love to do that, but apparently people can't sit in this room.
More than a couple minutes.
Yeah. I would love to sit down for a good amount of time and really try it out. But that's not what we're here for. We're here for stories.
Yeah.
On to the next one.
I think we had a good start.
Yeah. I've got a good one called Spooky Ghost House. Okay. Once upon a time, there was a spooky ghost house. This house was so spooky that it scared a man to death. I don't believe these tales, so I went to the house to see for myself and was spooked to death too. Now we both are spooked to death. And so we spooked each other to death even more so. A man came into the room and was all, ghosts are spooky, and was so spooked, and we spooked him too to death. And he didn't become a ghost. Instead, he became a demon, and he killed us both so that our souls would leave the place so that he couldn't do all the spooking. The end.
All right, no further questions.
Yeah. There wasn't a whole lot of punctuation. I'm surprised they put quotes around that one quote.
Putting on the Ritz.
Yeah.
That was our hand hook Cardor.
That was the first one that came up. I'm like, I really want to read that again.
We already read it, didn't we?
We've read it. We'll read it again.
I'm sure we've read it about 12 times at this point. I like that one. That was good. It was like, so we can do all the spooking. Can you reread it, actually? I want to hear more. I'm just going to close my eyes. Shut out all sound. Go.
Once upon a time, there was a spooky house. This house was so spooky that it scared a man to death.
Never mind.
Okay. All right. Your next story.
Oh, we're not going to discuss that. Is there anything to discuss?
No.
Do you know anything about like the author or?
No, I got it from Creepypasta.
Never mind.
It's a Reddit now. Yeah, it used to have its own website, but then who'd have thought that a Creepypasta website wouldn't be popular enough to like pay for the website hosting?
Everyone would think that. It's like business
I love it.
101. Don't set yourself up to fail. So, okay, well then I'm a little turned off by that. I mean, it's funny if like it's a one-off. Like, do you remember Tales to Tell Around Midnight?
Yes.
I like those because they're sincere.
Yes.
And it's like, you know, I'm telling a funny story, but I'm telling it through the guise of a horror story. And the author does not know that he's writing a spoof. And what that was, I would have loved it. The cake is a lie.
Well, there was Creepypasta, so that if you were voted down enough, you just went into the Creepypasta page. Yeah, but they don't have that on Creepypasta any longer. What? Oh, why are we spinning? Are we still live? Oh, no.
I'm just going to choose to ignore that and move on to my next story.
Yeah, why not? Anyway.
Okay. So, I mean, we got a few, and I'll just let you pick the next one because, I mean, so I have 4, and I don't think we're going to read all 4. But
okay.
Do you want to hear Kendall Cove, the Hirsch Camera, the Fulcrum, or the Opossum Society?
Ooh. Let's do Candle Cove.
Let's do Candle Cove. That's my favorite.
Yeah.
This one, you know, we'll go into a little bit of a background on, oh, you know what? I forgot the way Candle Cove is set up. It's kind of written like an internet chat room. So it's not going to...
Oh, it's not going to flow
it's not going to flow very well.
Let's pick another one.
Okay. I'll give the gist of Candle Cove while I look for a better one. Candle Cove is basically a bunch of people in the chat room, kind of like early 2000s style, talking about a show they used to watch as a kid called Candle Cove. And the premise of the show is it's one live actor, a little kid, I think like maybe a 6-year-old girl or something, and her friends, these pirates, who go around an island called Candle Cove. They were on a talking boat called the Laughing Stock, and they were hunted by some evil dude whose name I forgot, and his bodyguard or his sidekick, the Skin Taker. And it was all in the story. The story of this story is that it's these people talking about, oh, I can't believe our parents let us watch this. The show was so scary growing up. It always seemed so low rent and weird. And they talked about the final episode of the show running was all the puppets flailing maniacally and screaming, and you know, these crappy little puppets are, you know, being like thrown around and their jaws are coming off and their arms are coming off and, you know, they're breaking down, and all the while the little girl is just screaming. And I think the last comment is, wow, I can't believe our parents used to let us watch this, blah blah blah, whatever. And someone else says, yeah, my grandma used to come in and say I was just watching static for an hour.
Yeah.
And I just liked that. I thought it was a well-written story. But when I first read Candle Cove, I was so dumb, I thought this was true.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and it was cool because by the time I got to it, you know, there was enough of a fan club around it that people had made, like, YouTube videos.
Yeah.
So when I read the story, I was like, oh my god, Candle Cove, I'm going to look this up. Is this a real thing? And I looked up, and you can find... like that YouTube video, that video of like the last episode, and it's real poorly done, but it's scary as hell, and it scared me as a kid.
The Sci-Fi Channel made I thought they were trying to make a TV show called Candle Cove.
It's called Channel Zero, and it's a real loose adaptation.
Yeah.
In fact, I don't think it has any of like the key elements except for maybe like a haunted TV show.
I think that's what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good show ever though. I haven't seen it, but it's on my to-do list.
I would like to see it.
Okay. So, what are you thinking? Hirsch Camera's good. Fulcrum that's probably the weakest link, so I'd probably say either Hirsch Camera or the Opossum.
I have read, and I like it.
Mm-hmm.
The Opossum Society, I don't remember reading that one.
That's a good one. Let's do that one.
Because
the Hirsch Camera is less of a story and more of, some of the stories are kind of written as like, it's called Iker Falls, a visitor's guide.
Yeah.
So, there's something about Iker Falls stories.
Southern Drawl. I think we're live again. Somebody let me know.
Probably not.
Anybody on there? What are we saying? Check it out. Cancel.
Well, I'm just gonna go on YouTube and see if I can view it.
There you go.
I don't think we can depend on our fan.
We back, boys. All right, thank you, Nikki.
It appears we're still live.
Yeah, we're live again.
Oh, hey, people.
Yeah, all right. And we got one more viewer.
I love that we know so little. We have to ask, hey, fans, are we recording anything?
Let's just say we don't have the money for like a really expensive CS like, live over here. Although I think I can on the TV. It would just be sucking up bandwidth though for us uploading it. So no, we're not going to do that. Yeah.
I mean, we'll discuss off the podcast, but I mean, there's got to be like what do you call like those Wi-Fi boosters?
Yeah. Yeah, those are like $10. Yeah. Get one of those. All right.
We have $10 between the two of us. I have no idea where we lost people. So, whatever. Let's just go into this next story.
All right.
So, you're familiar with Brood Hollow. This one's kind of reminiscent of the Bowers playing their game of Oubliette.
Okay.
So it's like a secret club playing their card game in the 30s. So, very secretive. And by 30s, I mean, 1940. So I wasn't 130 years off like last time. Here we go with the Opossum Society by Chris Straub. My grandfather was a big card gambler and told us a lot of wild stories from his traveling youth. He mostly kept a 5-card stud and was a master bluffing. Given the nature of most of this, he was at least telling the truth. The story that stuck with me, it happened sometime in 1940. His parents died that there was all-night gambling at a nearby Indian reservation. Maybe Manitan or Manapani, I forgot which. The story was that a local group of investors called themselves the Opossum Society gathered there one night a month and talked big policy and local events, things that made them feel wealthy. Intrigued, my grandfather caught a ride near there and walked a couple of miles on foot the rest of the way. 2 things to remember about my grandfather. He was slick and charming as anything, and he hated to play sober. He said they poured strong drinks over there, and by the time he had the courage to wander over to the lone table where anyone was still playing, he was worried they'd kick him out for being too drunk. After 20 minutes or so, he'd been invited to sit down. The game was 5-card stud. My grandfather didn't have much money, but he hung on in the early hands, and after an hour or so, he had a tidy pile of chips in front of him, to the surprise of the others. The night wore on, the talk was lively, and the drinks kept coming. An old woman came around with a tray of shots of whiskey, which he placed in front of each player. Each raised their glasses, and one man made a toast. To the Opossum Society, and to new friends. They all drank, and the dealer continued with a new hand. My grandfather said the tone of the game changed. All the din of small talk and high conversation was replaced with a quiet shuffling of cards and the clinking of chips. Sensing this, my grandfather bet conservatively, but it became increasingly difficult as the pot grew. Finally, deciding the most he'd be out was the money he walked in with, he went all in on the next hand. The entire table called, and the cards came down. Although there was a clear winner, and it wasn't my grandfather, all eyes on the table turned to one of the other players, who had trash cards and no chips left. Sweating, he pled with the dealers, the others in the society, even the old Indian woman. You know the rules, said the winner. At this, the losing player burst into tears, knocking over a stool, ran out of the place whimpering and moaning. The other players congratulated my grandfather, saying he played a good game, and they had an open invitation to play next time they gathered. The old woman came around with another tray of shots and set them down, and my grandfather said, "No more for me, thanks. I've got to get home." But she insisted he drink. He asked why. The winning player leaned in and said, "It's the antidote."
I like that.
That's real good.
Oh, man.
My stupid brain had to read it like 3 or 4 times before I understood what was going on. But no, that's real good.
Oh, yeah. That's a good way to... I like that.
It's short and sweet, it's to the point, creepy as hell.
Oh, yeah.
And it's really reminiscent, I keep saying reminiscent. It's really, I'm going to say reminiscent of the times. Like, people so bored with their lives that, gambling on money is not enough.
Oh, yeah. No, that's...
gamble some a little bit harder.
I think that was it's a good way to also, like, bait and switch the ending. It was a... If that was a comedy routine, that would be a good way for, like, the punchline to hit you just like that.
Yep.
So, yeah, I think that was perfect.
Yeah. Not really a whole lot to say about it. Just good.
No.
Once again, takes place near Acre Falls. Just a crazy, crappy town.
I love it. I don't know if I want to move there, but hey, who knows?
I say we can visit.
I have. I'm going to read two more, and then I think we might call that a night. Who knows? We'll see.
We have no idea what we're doing. We didn't plan this a minute in advance.
No way. All right. So Jeff versus Slenderman. It was a very cold night, and I was lying in bed reading a book. I heard scratching at my window, but that was impossible because it was the second story. I went under my covers. I've never been so scared before. I heard somebody walking towards my bed. I peeked out to see Jeff, the killer, standing in front of my bed. Crap, I screamed. I saw Slenderman teleport from behind Jeff. I screamed, I saw him first, skinny bastard, Jeff said. Slenderman's tentacles descended and grabbed a lamp off my shelf. I watched the whole thing. Slenderman closed my door and locked it. Slenderman threw a lamp at Jeff. Waha! Yelled Jeff. Die, die, die! Jeff repeatedly stabbed Slenderman. Ha 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 ha! Shouted Jeff. But it was too late to laugh. Slenderman got him. He grabbed Jeff's legs and hung him upside down. There's an extra H in went.
There shouldn't be an H in when to start. What do you mean an extra H? Went.
I went under my covers and heard a loud snap. Gah! Blood splattered on my wall. I looked to see Jeff's arm ripped off. Slenderman threw Jeff on the floor and tore all his limbs off and ate them. Then Slenderman teleported to my bed. Oh shit, I yelled. Yeah. My parents rammed down the door and saw Slenderman standing there. Ah, they screamed. Slenderman grabbed them and ripped their heads off. Slenderman killed my parents and Jeff. I was I forgot the F in afraid. I was arrayed and I was arrayed he was going to kill me, but he just teleported away. And to this day, my room is covered in blood, and I never want to live in my house again. So I moved to Arkansas at the end. Boom! You didn't see that one coming.
Oh, Creepypasta?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to do a more serious one called In Between the Trees. Marnie strolled right into the woods and never came back.
The end.
We waited for her. We could have just left the second she disappeared between the trees, but she seemed so darn confident that we waited. Nobody wanted to say it, but after 2 hours, we knew that was it. Sure, we felt bad for Marnie, but it could have been said, well, this fucking thing printed all wrong.
I wish we knew how to read.
I know. No, it was the fucking line got printed all weird again. Okay.
How are we so bad?
Sure, we felt bad for Marnie, but we could have said one last thing to her, and it would have been to stop. It would have been thanks. It was her, not me. So if I felt anything for Marnie, it's gratitude, not pity. In the end, it was probably always going to be her anyway. She found it. The small stone chapel had just sat there in its little clearing, protected by a ring of trees. Marnie saw it first and crashed through the bushes, calling out to us to follow. How had we never seen it before? Perhaps it didn't want to be found. It was deeper in than we'd ever been, right at the heart of the woods, it felt like. The air was cold. More than that, it was dead. Nothing moved or made a sound. I know now that place was never meant to be found, not by human eyes. It was far too sacred for that. There were a few lines of stone pews and a raised stone altar. That was it. And yet there was something more. There existed more in this place than could be seen. I wanted to leave, but Marnie thought it was funny. Why would they build a chapel all the way out here, she said. We shouldn't have done it. It was Marnie's idea, of course. Let's do a ritual sacrifice to appease the gods, she giggled.
Who the fuck is Marnie?
She's dead now. Elizabeth laughed too. She gave a fake little sermon at the altar, and we sat on the stone pews and bowed our heads. It was kind of funny, but it might have been fine if we'd stopped there, but Marnie was insistent. We need a sacrifice, she said. The others went off in search, but I stayed seated. I should have just left, but there was something about that place. I felt connected to it. It was so calm. Marnie came back smiling, holding a tiny lizard. She carried it out in front of her, humming some sort of hymnal tune. She stepped up to the altar, holding this lizard down in one hand. Elizabeth pass her a rock. She seemed less sure now. Marty took it in her other hand and held it up above her head. Mighty gods that bless these woods, she bellowed in a deep tone, please accept this humble sacrifice we offer to you in exchange for your eternal favor. And then she brought down the rock. A couple of us gasped. I don't think anyone thought she would actually do it. There was a tiny little stain of black blood on the altar. A chill swept through the clearing. That's when I knew we had woken them. The others must have felt it too because everyone wanted to leave, even Marty. She waited a whole week before asking us to go back there with her. She passed it off as a sudden whim, but I could tell the idea had been preying on her. It was in her eyes. They lost all focus. We went with her right to the edge of the woods, and then we all backed out. She laughed at us and said we were scared. We were scared, but we weren't stupid. She tried to convince us, but in the end, the need was too strong. She decided to go by herself, and we let her. It was easier not to talk about it. The police had questions, but we never mentioned what had gone on in the woods. We all decided to stay away from that place except for Elizabeth. She would talk about it endlessly. She became obsessed. She pleaded with us to go back. She said Marty was calling to her. She said she could feel the place calling to her. And I was terrified because I had felt it too. Lying awake at night, feeling my heart would just burst if I couldn't go back there one more time. It seemed to affect her more strongly. She had been close to Marty when it happened. Maybe they had sensed her presence. So we all ended up back there at the edge of the woods, in the exact spot where Marty had left us. The others tried to reason with her, but Elizabeth was beyond that. As I watched her disappear into the woods, I whispered a final goodbye. We waited again. I don't know why. With Marnie, there had been some sense of hope that she would return, but this time, I think we didn't want her back. How long did we wait for? As long as it took. We almost couldn't believe it when Elizabeth emerged from the woods. She walked straight out as if everything was fine. She was scratched and disheveled and didn't even know if it was still her anymore. She walked up to us, just stood there looking around at us with a lovely little smile of anticipation on her face. In her hands, she held a heavy pointed rock. Watch this, she said, and smashed the rock into her left eye.
Ugh, Jesus.
Blood poured down her face as she let out some ungodly shriek, some horrified mix of laughter, crying, and screaming. We ran. We left her there screaming and laughing as we ran. The high-pitched wailing was the last thing I ever heard from Elizabeth. The damage done to her eye was irreparable, and she was admitted to the mental institution. She's still there. Actually, it wasn't the last I heard of Elizabeth. Not exactly. I visited her just once, about a month after the incident. It was still her body, but any semblance of Elizabeth had long gone. She sat there and just looked at me, still with that faint little smile, her one good eye following my every move. I tried to talk to her. I wanted to apologize. For what, I don't know. Throughout it all, she just sat there and smiled. I didn't stay long. There didn't seem to be much point. She waited for me to reach the door before speaking. Was it a warning or simply her way of showing me that she held me responsible? Regardless, I still hear that refrain echoing through my mind in that childish little chant. The end.
That was alright.
It was good. It was better than some of the other ones I found.
I don't know. A lot of build up, no payoff. I was expecting, I wanted to hear what her last words were. I was really listening for that. And then he just said, the end.
Yep.
Startled me awake. I was like, what?
But yeah, so that was my creepypasta. You want to read one more, or do you think we're good?
Let me see if I can find a quick one. I would have loved... I visited Elizabeth one time while she was in the men's institute. She took another rock and said, well, watch this, and then jammed it into her right eye. And I was like, oh, shit, what did I expect?
I got a seeing eye dog.
Once again, kind of falling victim to the whole less is more fallacy, I'm going to call it at this point. Because, questions. who built this stone chapel if it wasn't made by humans.
Right.
Which I'm kind of digging, but I mean, like, there's so little of it, and it's, I mean, there's, like, nothing to it. It's like, oh, you know, someone disappeared, we don't know why, another person went crazy.
Yeah.
We don't know why. Maybe, honestly, maybe if it was a little bit longer, and just kind of, like, maybe if something bad happened to one more person, just to kind of, like the Law of Three, like
yeah.
the third one explains what's going on.
That would have made much more sense.
Yeah.
If it had happened to the narrator, and they had gone into the woods and explored a little bit more. Maybe a couple more paragraphs could have done it.
Yeah,
Who knows?
just you know, tell me what's going on here. Not you awaken the old gods and they half blinded one of your friends and another one disappeared and that's it.
Yeah.
Then I got over it. Then I left.
She's got a convenient pocket now for the rest of her life.
Jesus, it ends and it was a summer none of us would ever forget. Okay. I don't even know because the titles don't tell you anything. We can read. Well, we can't read promises. We already did that.
Yeah.
Curious little thing, indistinguishable, OSD 09H03. That was just this cat walked across the keyboard. 3 miles up a narrow dirt road, shining one from above the clouds. This one's just called Aware. 20 minutes in the dark. Just here, you look over the list and pick one because all of the stories just through titles alone kind of blend together.
Well,
we can just reread Opossum Society and call it a night.
That was a good one.
That was a very good one, yeah. I like how they're creepy, but they're not like. And then she stabbed her eye with a rock.
Yeah. Let's do.
Let's end with Fulcrum. It's just
Okay.
weird enough. One of my least and most favorites. Okay. But it's short.
Okay.
Also, this isn't going to make a whole lot of goddamn sense. Okay, so this story is called The Fulcrum.
The Fulcrum.
I'll read it, and then we can kind of dissect it, because very interesting.
Okay.
So here we go. The Fulcrum by Chris Straub. You'll either die or lose your mind if you reach the end of the sentence, so stop reading it. In the early 1930s, a research group of psychologists, semioticists, and English professors in Austria were researching the fundamentals of understanding language. It was believed, rather than language simply being an arbitrary, albeit varyingly complex, system of mnemonics for a conceptualization of reality, that perhaps once learned and internalized, our use of language actually became embedded within the root thought processes involved in our filtration of external ordered stimuli, and thereby our very grasp of reality. And this team of researchers distilled what turned out to be a symbolic halt mechanism into a new kind of punctuation, not a period or exclamation mark or question mark, but a cognitive escape character they referred to as the ablation mark, or fulcrum for short. Not much shorter fulcrum is. Though whether the word fulcrum betrays the visual appearance or actual textual annotation of this new punctuation really should not be dwelled upon, even though as a glyph it is fairly unremarkable. It operates differently when encountered as a component of grammar. Regardless, you should have stopped reading the sentence long ago, because at some point I've got to end it, and it won't be with a period, or an exclamation mark, or a question mark, but with the fulcrum, and only a fulcrum, because I've used all the colons, semicolons, parentheses, and em dashes I possibly can, and yet you continue reading, making it very difficult for me to continue to make the sentence grammatically correct, which it must be, for it is the only thing keeping me from dying or losing my mind, because I did see the fulcrum, and began writing the sentence in an attempt to maintain my already faltering grasp on a world of ordered concepts and symbols tied to meaning, to stave off the deconstruction of my earliest memories of language, since it is this deconstruction upon viewing the ablation mark that is so sudden and so severe that the victim's sensory perception actually briefly halts, leaving the mind locked in total isolation that cannot be described as darkness or even absence of darkness, which in turn brings about a catastrophic sympathetic response of the central nervous system, a response that I have only managed to delay with a purely grammatically correct sentence which I cannot allow to end, and yet must end because I cannot forever type out a purely grammatical correct sentence when I've used all available punctuation, including colons, semicolons, parentheses, em dashes, hyphens, save for the damned ablation mark, which if you value your life, you will break your gaze with a single sentence immediately, for the fulcrum is real, and it is absence of absence, and I can't go on using words like for, and but, and to string out more clauses onto the still, but not for long, purely grammatically correct sentence, so God help me and have mercy on my soul and forgive me for what I'm about to do, but I never should have opened that drawer in the office, and if I'd never read the paper, I'd have never seen the fulcrum, but God help me, God help me, God help me, I did. Character not supported in any ISO 8859-1 font. Right?
Yeah,
right?
I like that one. That's a good one.
That's a cool one. That one really kind of, breaks down what you think about like a creepypasta.
Yeah.
And that's what I like. That's what I like about all of his stories, because it's scary, but it's scary in like ominous more than scary, honestly.
Yeah.
But I just love how it ends. It ends with he typed the mark, but it's like you ever type like an emoji in on an iPhone and it just shows up as like just a square, just like a square. It's like that.
When
I like it, like something's there but you can't see.
When I get alerts from people using emojis on my watch and it's not supported by it, it'll just be like the greater than, less than symbol, and then a question mark in between that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I absolutely know what it's like to not have a supported image. So no, I think that's really cool. And I think that's going to end it for tonight. Thank you guys for joining us and just listening to us read stories to you. We love doing this. I think it's a lot of fun. And the next episode,
I like reading stories because I don't have to think for myself.
Yeah, the next episode, I normally don't like to discuss what the next episode is going to be, but it's going to be our long-awaited horror movie episode that we've been putting off for a long time. It's supposed to do it in October, but just due to the tree hitting my house and then moving back in and then the holidays and then all this other stuff, we're finally able to start recording again on a pretty regular basis. So
I love how we sat down, we discussed, business plan. How is this podcast going to move forward and how are we going to expand into new media? We announced it on YouTube Live, and then like the next week everything fell apart. And we're like, oh shit, we can't record for 2.5 months.
Yeah, didn't mean to, but hey,
that's their plans.
Yeah. So now before we leave and before we say our closing statements, Jake, you don't have this is to put in here.
Hold on. Jeff says you're gonna get butt flu. He's bringing it back around. Okay, I already put my mouth on the side and think this through. Can I have a new toothpick?
Yeah, why don't you use this one?
You put so much on this.
It's not a lot. I wiped it all. Okay,
Wipe off more.
I'll use that one.
It's like fine wine. You don't actually imbibe. You just have to air it towards yourself.
No. People don't want to see that. They want to see us actually hate what
Don't be a baby, Jake. You know I'm a baby.
All right, so I've got this much hot sauce.
I've got this much. My hand is shaking holding this. Goddamn it.
I have already tried this. This stuff is murder without some sort of like medium between you and it. So, cheers.
What does that mean? All right, cheers, dog. This was a mistake. That takes no time at all. It is all on my tongue. I'm afraid to swallow. I swallowed. I took a very little amount, so I'm actually, I think, okay.
It's hot though.
Yeah.
Fuck. It tastes. I will say one thing. Once the heat kind of like dissipates, it tastes good. But my God, I can feel it in my fucking gums.
I'm actually gonna take a little bit more. I actually want to know what it tastes like.
Yeah, here.
I'm gonna see if this is like good with food or anything.
I had it on a sandwich it was just beef and Swiss cheese. It's really good.
Really? How much did you use?
I would count it maybe 2 or 3 drops. It was hot.
Okay. I'm actually gonna get like a dab.
There you go.
Like, that seems like a suitable amount.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm gonna go for.
You got a chunk on it.
Where's the goddamn camera? I'm gonna go for that much, and we'll see what this does. Do you have like water or something around here in case things go bad? What is that?
Water.
Oh, good. Okay. Here we go. Bottoms up. No, I don't like the taste. No, that was a mistake.
So anyways.
Oh, fuck.
So anyway, guys.
Swallowing hurts, and yet you have to swallow.
Oh my god, your eyes.
Shut up.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We hope you had fun.
There's no taste to it. It's just heat.
The taste will come, I promise you. Just give it a second. Like us on YouTube. We really appreciate it if you like us and follow us and subscribe. Like this video. If you hated it, just make a comment and let us know that you hated it. We love hearing that too.
Jeff is right. I'm getting really red. Look at the difference between us.
What else will I say? Like us on iTunes. If you're listening to us on Stitcher, like us on Stitcher. If we're on Podbean and you're listening to us there, like us there.
I can't believe we actually have like viewers on this crap.
Oh yeah. Yeah. People watch us. And if we're not on your favorite podcast thing, if you're streaming us from the website, let me know. I'll try and get us on there. If you really like what we do, maybe you want to be a subscriber on our Patreon. If you want to be a patron, I'm going to start. Yeah, I'm going to start recording the Patreon exclusives and the mini-sodes. I'm just going to start releasing them once people start subscribing to them.
Yeah, and we're thinking, did we discuss what we want to do last time? Kind of like, have like some of our friends come on and do like kind of like one-off videos and stuff.
Absolutely. They're going to be one-off videos. You get early access to a lot of our videos too.
Late access. You can kind of put that off if you want.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll let you see it a week later than everyone else. Give you a little more time to prepare.
Oh yeah. And in the meantime, thank you for joining us. We hope you had fun.
No, we did.
Nick will be here for the next episode. Who knows who else will be here for the next episode?
I might be here.
Hopefully. Anyway, guys, thank you for joining us. We hope you have fun, and everybody keep it weird. Bye.